On the bond here on Wednesday, the 4th of November, 2015, Brisbane time. I'm joined by my old mate, Matrix Decoder, live from Spain, where I think it might still be Tuesday, the 3rd of November. You tell me, Matrix.
Yeah, it's now Wednesday, 3:40 in the morning, so 3:40 a.m. Yeah.
Oh, it's a late one for you, is it? Well, let me just explain to the listeners. You and I, Matrix, a few months ago now, had 3 impromptu chats where basically we were talking on Skype. We thought, hey, this conversation, maybe somebody else might like to hear it as well. So we broadcast it live, and all of those episodes got a couple of thousand listens. And we've been meaning to do another one for a little while. And we were talking on Skype just a few moments ago, and you said, hey, let's have another impromptu chat. And I said, why not? So here we are. Is that a fair summation of how it's gone down?
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's been a while since we've done the last one, so yeah, it's about time.
Yeah, it is. And I should say, for the record, I understand that Jeranism is doing his what do you call that, International Space Station Watch live show right now. So we're not meaning to compete with him. Obviously, this show, once it's recorded, is there for people to watch in the future. So people will probably continue to watch his show live right now, and then they might find time to watch ours in the future. But we weren't meaning to go head-to-head. In fact, it didn't even occur to me until right before we pressed start broadcast that his show was on. So apologies to Jeranism. We didn't mean to go head-to-head with you, but hopefully you can forgive us. You can understand that this was impromptu, as with the last three. And hopefully, Matrix, people get something out of this.
Yeah, man. We were just having a good discussion beforehand. So yeah, I mean, we thought we'd just put it on live because it's quite interesting.
Yeah, well, the last 3 impromptu chats were back in June and July. So it's been more than 3 months. And since
Wow.
then, obviously, our show that you and I did with David Weiss of Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, the Baller Skeptic Roundtable, that season has wrapped up. And obviously, I've wrapped up my Sunday sessions and ARP shows as well. So I've kind of been away from the live broadcasting for a little while now. I've enjoyed the break, and I don't intend for that break to finish anytime soon. But as a one-off thing, I thought, why not have a chat? And we were having, I don't want to say a heated discussion, Matrix, but it's fair to say that there's a few things on which you and I disagree. So hopefully we can, in a spirit of positivity and construction, we can have a polite disagreement on one or two things on the air right now. How's that sound?
Yeah, cool. I mean, it goes where it goes, man.
It's going to be organic. I can't promise that it's going to be as fun as the previous shows, but crossing our fingers, we'll see where it all heads. We're up to about 20 live listeners, so we will try to read out some of the comments as we go through the show. We'll see how that pans out. And I do actually have other things to do with myself this afternoon, so we might not get to do a full 2-hour show or anything like that. But again, we'll see where it all goes. That is the nature of the impromptu chat. But before we get started, Matrix, for those who aren't aware, I think it is worth giving you a few moments to plug what you've been doing recently with Wakey Wakey. So why don't you give listeners a basic idea of the Flat Earth Rebel Outpost and the effort you've been putting into that lately?
Yeah, well, thanks. Well, myself and Wakey Wakey, Mark Knight, we met up after the Ball Earth Skeptic show, and we live quite near each other, and we met up and got along really well, and started coming up with ideas, and we came up with the Flat Earth Rebel Outpost. It's a place for sort of humorous, comedic stuff, artistic, just trying to be creative with the Flat Earth movement. The stuff that's going on in the movement, our personal views on Flat Earth, and just trying to twist it up, make it funny. As an antidote to a lot of the seriousness and the fear and the paranoia that's out there. So we put our, tried to, do the best with our creative skills, and hopefully people are enjoying it. The feedback's been good so far. We've got different characters there, and a bit of something for everyone. And it's really just there to lighten the mood and make people feel things aren't so bad. And because things are, the world is really messed up, but it doesn't mean we have to stop being creative or having a good time. And so that's what we're looking to do with the show. It's just provide an outlet for people to have a good laugh. and also poke fun at, globe heads. The show is definitely totally for flat earthers. It's not catering to globe heads or the sheep or the masses. It's purely for flat earthers who get what's going on, are involved in what's going on, and it's sort of an outpost for everybody.
Well, you say that it's only for flat earthers, but I'll respectfully disagree with you. As somebody who doesn't identify that way, prefers the term baller skeptic, I certainly get a lot out of the show. We've just been joined by David Weiss of Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, who wasn't party to the past 3 impromptu chats, but on Matrix's recommendation has joined us today. David, how are you, live from New York?
I thought this was just going to be a chat amongst the 3 of us, but I'm in. What's going on, boys?
Hey, Dave.
Hey.
It's been a while since we've chatted live on the air, David, and in the interim, I understand that you've started your own side project with Patricia Steer, again for the benefit of the listeners, since this is on my channel, and perhaps some of them might not follow you guys as closely as they otherwise would. Do you want to explain what you're doing with Patricia, David, and how that's going so far?
Funny you should ask. So, you know who Mike Adams is? You don't because you're in Australia, but maybe some of your listeners do. Mike Adams has Natural News. He's a pretty good truth seeker. He's out for all the causes, and he started a new radio network called talknetwork.com. He's got some big names on there. And it's a competitor to like Truth Frequency Radio. And he has Patricia and I on with a show called Truth is Stranger Than Lies. We got 2 episodes off, one a week. Third one was in the can, ready to go. And he comes out and says to his producers, this flat earth stuff's got to go. It's insane. We can't have it. We're going to be a target, and it's going to discredit our entire network. Then the producers were fighting. It's like, what do you mean? No, this is good stuff. And he's like, it's crazy. Flat earth is insane. He, without ever listening to the show, without ever checking into flat earth, he canned us. So I said he owes me a phone call, a Skype call, out of courtesy. I said, just 10 minutes. I wanted to politely tell him, that I understand how he feels and throw a little flat earth knowledge. Well, that turned into a 46-minute call where I schooled him on flat earth. And the reason I'm late to this call is this was a day or 2 ago that this happened. He's been Skyping me. He's digging into flat earth right now. And he's asking questions, and his head is exploding. And this is very exciting because if Mike Adams comes out saying the earth is flat, that's the biggest guy so far.
Wow, that's good stuff.
He's taken the red pill, and there's no going back in. The question is, how long will it take?
So what you're saying there, David, is that you're doing a show with Patricia Steer on this network. The guy in charge of the place wanted to get rid of you, and you're saying that you've changed it around, and now he wants to keep you, and he might even come out.
I got sidetracked. So he agreed that he'll let us keep the show on with a disclaimer, like, hey, the views of these hosts are not necessarily the views of Mike Adams and Talk Network, and I was great with that. But then he came up with a disclaimer that was so ridiculous, like the views of these hosts are insane and you should never believe them. And I refused, so we got fired twice within 24 hours. So we are now fired from talknetwork.com. But if you want to hear our first 2 shows, they're still there in the archives. Just go click on talknetwork.com, click archives, find Truth is Stranger Than Lies, and right-click on our 2 shows, and you can download them. And they were, I thought they were quite good.
Hold on a second. You're going to have to forgive me because just forgive me on this. So what you're saying is that he wanted to fire you, you talked him around to Flat Earth, and then he said, but you have to have a disclaimer, and you were happy to have the disclaimer, but somehow you still fired again.
Yeah, but hold on. The timing, that all happened before he really dug in. Now he's digging in, and his last statement to me was, if you turn me into a flat earther, I'm going to kick your ass. And I said, it's too late.
You planted the seed.
because he's going to have to be the biggest hypocrite because, like myself, when I first learned about flat Earth, I didn't want to say anything about it because I thought it was going to discredit everything else I have done, but I'm like, the truth is the truth. I have to risk that and come out with it, and that's when we started the Ball Earth Skeptic Show.
All right. Well, just quickly, guys. I think it might be you, David. We're getting some weird high pitch feedback there. I'm not sure if it sounds like someone's ruffling chips or something.
Is that better now?
Yeah, it sounds better. All right, then.
Is that better?
Yeah. So, okay. So just bear with me on this one. So officially, as it stands right now, you've been fired from that network. Your show's gone. It's finished. But you think you might be back sooner rather than later. That's the crux of this.
That's a possibility. You might have to pay for us to come back at that point, though.
Oh, really? Are you fetching bigger offers, David?
Maybe we have another network actually looking at our show that might be interested in having us on there. So we'll see what happens. It's all good. I'm loving the ride.
Oh, and I got to learn about all of this live on the air. That's the impromptu chat for you. This is why you need to be subscribed to the John LeBon channel, because anything can happen. You get to learn things as I learn them. Hey, Matrix, did you know about all of this, by the way, Matrix?
No, not about the latest development. But I thought Dave and Patricia's show was not only talking about flat Earth, but other conspiracies as well.
Yeah, so, it was. But truthfully, we really... We're going to talk about flat Earth in every show. It's something that is so compelling to me that I just can't stop looking into it.
For sure.
Hey, Matrix, are you still getting that positive that feedback from David's mic? Is that David's mic? It's very frustrating. What is that?
I was getting a little like someone was opening a suite or something. A little bit rustling.
Wait a minute, I can fix it. Just give me a second.
Yeah, we might have to boot you from the show, David, Patricia Steer style. So there you go. Well, how about that for some breaking news? Wow. Axed after 2 shows, the Flat Earth, too much of a hot topic for that network. Very interesting stuff. I did listen to the first 2 episodes, and they're only 1 hour long, so it doesn't take long to get through them. Put it on 1.2, 1.3 speed, and you just skip through the ads, and it takes about an hour to listen to 2 hours worth of material. Matrix, what did you make of Patricia Steer and David Weiss's chemistry? Did you enjoy listening to them?
I think I listened to the first show they did on the Mike Adams network. Yeah, I think they're great. I think they're both great. I think they've got good chemistry. I really enjoy Patricia's work. I think she's a natural at hosting a show, and David's cool too. So yeah, I think they're good stuff.
The second show we interviewed Jeranism, and it came off pretty nice.
Well, we did say before you got here, David, that Jeranism is live as we speak right now, and we didn't mean to go to air when he was on the air, but with our previous 3 impromptu chats, we just decided to schedule it when we were having a Skype call. The same thing happened today, and most of our listeners listen a day or 2 days later. So hopefully no one takes any offense to any of that. So good to have you here, David. The 3 of us are back together for the first time live on the air since the Ball Earth Skeptic Roundtable wrapped up, which was back on August 26th. So what's that? More than 2 months ago now. Yeah? Wow, it's gone very quickly. So what we were doing, David, before you got here, in fact, before we started this live on the air, was Matrix and I were having one of our irregular Skype chats, and he suggested that we go to air and share our polite and civil disagreements, because there are a few things where maybe we don't necessarily see eye to eye with regards to this flat Earth movement, if you like. And basically, what I'm hoping we can do right now is the 3 of us have a chat just generally about what we think is happening, where we see things going, and maybe some of the characters who are pretty prominent in the whole scene. So what I'll do is I'll throw you there first there, Matrix, live from Spain via London. Pick up from where we left off in the Skype call, your general views about where you think this is all headed.
Yeah, well, we were having a really good discussion, and it involved quite a few different aspects of what's going on right now. Relating to people, some big names in the let's call it the flat Earth movement. We were discussing whether it is a movement or not, and where it's going. And for me, it's like evolving. It's something really amazing that's happening, and it's growing and growing, sort of maybe exponentially. And you was questioning whether it is a movement, and was wondering about where it's heading. And I think there's so much positivity out there with the movement. Let's call it a movement, because there's so many people involved, and it's going somewhere. I think it's moving forward. It's capturing lots of people's imaginations and changing people's perspective on the world. And we was also discussing some things that were happening in the movement and how things have been developing. And I was talking to you about IFAs and Eric Dubay and some of the things I don't like what he's been doing lately and in recent times, and was expressing my concern about him.
Well, I'll tell you what, we can come back and address specific characters later on, but just generally, here was where I think our first disagreement lay, in that you believe there is such thing as a flat earth movement. I don't agree with that premise to begin with, that there's a movement. And my question to you was, let's pretend it is a movement. Where is it moving to? And some people might say, oh, but we don't mean movement literally moving somewhere. And then I say, okay, then why do you use that word? That word has certain implications, and it gives some people hope of, oh, we're heading somewhere, we're going somewhere. Well, I'm open-minded, I'm here to listen. You tell me, where is this all headed? Because it seems to me that there's a large number of people out there who love listening to other people talk about flat earth, and love watching videos about flat earth, and love talking about flat earth themselves, but aren't particularly interested in doing any of their own research or making any of their own breakthroughs or their own discoveries. And for me personally, I don't really want to have anything to do with those kinds of people. If you realize that TV and school are lying, and that the government is lying about so many things, but all you want to do is listen to other people talk about it rather than do your own research, read books for yourself, learn about things for yourself, then you and I really have nothing in common with one another. Because to me, there's so much to learn for myself. If you're not interested in learning things for yourself, I don't want to be part of any movement that you're in. Matrix, what say you?
Yeah, I think for me, I think you're underestimating a lot of the people that are in this, around on the scene, in the movement, if you like. I think a lot of people do the research. There's people who've been researching it for months, and there's people who've been researching it for weeks. And everyone can contribute in different ways. I think it's great what people are doing. I think people, come to listen to shows like this and other people's shows and get inspired and feel part of, they relate to people in different ways. And I think, some people like us, we're out there speaking about it, but other people maybe are gaining courage to do so as well and speak up and stand up. So I think, underestimate people a little bit. I think so.
Well, but it's not about underestimating people. It's saying, let's look at the facts of the matter. There's a very small group of people who are constantly, whether it's once a week or once a month, uploading new material saying, hey, look what I discovered. I looked through the archives. Look what I discovered. Or, hey, look what I discovered. I went through their textbooks. I went back through their primary sources. Look at all these problems I found with the official model. There are a small group of people doing that, and that's terrific. But for the most part, it seems to me, suppose, for argument's sake, there's 20,000 people, to use your figure earlier from Skype, on YouTube who are interested in flat earth theory. Suppose, just use that number arbitrarily. I would put to you, we'd be lucky if 1% of those people were genuine researchers looking for new information and new ideas and new concepts to share with others. And to me, it's very easy to believe that all of the 20,000 would be capable of making a difference to anything. But to me, if you can't even make a difference to your own worldview, that is, you won't even do your own research, then you're not going to change anyone else's worldview. So good luck with that movement. David wants to chime in. David, what say you?
Well, I disagree with you there that everybody has their role. And let's just look at the situation I'm having with my network that I was just talking about. The reason that he is looking into flat earth right now is because of all of the people that have been woken up by people like us, like our show, like Patricia's show, like Mark Sargent, like Eric Dubay, and they're all poking him, saying you should look into the flat Earth. They haven't done any research themselves except listening to us. You can kind of call that research, secondhand research. But they're poking him, and he's gotten to the point where he's looking. And now if he wakes up to the flat Earth and comes out and starts talking about it, then millions of people are going to wake up to it. And then we've hit the tipping point. So all of that is a movement. It's not organized and coordinated, although we are organizing and coordinating. Where this is a conspiracy right here. We conspired to have this live chat. Jeranism's doing his show. He's got mostly flat earthers on there, but maybe someone new is listening. And as these people wake up, they all do their roles. John B. Wells from the Caravan to Midnight, 3 days in the last week, he's opened up his show railing about flat Earth. He doesn't buy it. He doesn't know anything about it. He hasn't looked into it, and he's making stupid statements like, well, what, doesn't anyone fall off the edge? And how do people go around the world? And, but his listeners that maybe do no research are hounding him, and he's going to have a flat Earth show, and he's going to wake up 100,000 people. Okay, and now we have something. The tipping point happens all of a sudden, and it's going to happen fast, and it's going to happen soon. There's only two possibilities of what's going to happen. Flat Earth is going to go mainstream in the very near future, anytime from tomorrow to 2 years. I put it at closer to the closer side, or the collapse is going to come, and nobody's going to care about anything because it's all going to end.
All right, then. So let's follow this thought experiment through then. Let's suppose we reach what you're calling a tipping point, and then there's some critical mass of people who realize they've been lied to about the ball Earth model. Then what?
It's not going to be pretty.
Well, explain it to me. What's going to happen? In your imagination, what happens from that point on?
People are going to protest. People are going to stop paying their taxes. They're going to stop listening to the government. They're going to
stop paying your taxes, David?
Absolutely.
Okay, then, well, you just shut me up. Can I put to you, the majority of us who've learned about the ball lies, we haven't stopped paying our taxes. There's a small number of people like Wakey Wakey, who've found a way to essentially live off the land and do everything they can to avoid the state. But most people, even people who know about the ball Earth lies, they're still living their lives just like normal. They're not protesting anything. They just living their lives the way we've all been conditioned to live them. What say you?
They're waiting for enough people to lead. There's like a lot of people will, like a fire alarm goes off in a room, and nobody moves until one person moves, and then they all move. So there's a lot of people out there. We can call them sheep. You can call them, they're indoctrinated. They're afraid to lead. They're waiting for enough leaders. Guess what? You, Matrix, and I have sort of become a leader in a small way. Well, guess what? We've now inspired some guys that are bigger than us. They're going to say something. It's gonna spiral. It's gonna be big, and I see a major change. Well, and when the truth comes out, it's gonna be ugly. Everybody is gonna be pissed that they've been robbed and lied to their entire lives, and it's a whole new. I think a whole new civilization is going to come out of it.
Okay, then. So let's follow this through again. Most people, there are very, very few people who fully believe every word that comes from the government, and who fully believe the government's their friend, and who are fully happy to pay taxes. They do exist. I've met one. It's incredible to talk to them. But they're a very small percentage of the population. Most people accept they're being lied to about this or about that, or the government takes too much money or misspends money. Most people are down with that, but they still lead their lives despite the lies. Why, even if everyone learns about this one, why is this one going to be so different?
It's the biggest lie ever. It's tied to everything. You're going to find out that you've been in a cage, that everything that they've gotten you to feel patriotic and believe in. We sent a man to the moon. We have the space station. All lies. People aren't going to be able to get by that. There's not many people that know what happened on 9/11 for real, and that accept it. They're pissed, and they're disconnecting from the system. There's lots of people like, all right, something was wrong. They took advantage. They went to war because there was 19 hijackers. But if they really knew there wasn't 19 hijackers, and what it really was, they're not just going to go back to work. They're not going to continue to pay their taxes. They're not going to continue to cooperate. And it's our energy feeding the monster is how the monster stays alive. And when people are awake to the truth, they stop sending their energy. And that's what this is. That's what's going on.
It's a different kind of conspiracy. I mean, for me, it's an umbrella conspiracy. It includes everything. And, people walk outside their door every day and they see the world that, they see the flat earth. They see the flattened stationary earth. They feel it. They look at it. They see the horizon everywhere. They look up the sky. They see the sun, the moon, the stars. It's in their face. They can't ignore it. They can ignore things like 9/11, Sandy Hook, Boston bombing, perhaps even the moon landings. But I mean, the flat earth, that really is, it's in your face. It's like, they can't escape that. It's such an existential problem. And it's one of the best ways to break through all of the lies that we've been fed our entire lives. And this is why, its potential is so, incredible.
In the live chat, we've got about 50 people watching live. Thanks to everyone for joining us on such late notice. Justin Paula says everyone has to become their own authority, and I completely agree with him. I would love that. I would love if everyone decided that from this point forward, they're going to only believe that which they've proven to themselves and not rely on leaders, be they the false prophets of government and scientism or leaders on YouTube. They were only going to believe that which they could prove to themselves and become their own authority. I would love that. That'd be terrific. The problem I see is it seems to me like a lot of people still don't want to be their own leader, but they've just decided, well, instead of listening to Fox News or CNN, I'm now going to listen to this popular flat earther or that popular flat earther. And if you say to them, yeah, okay, those people are pretty cool, but what have you actually proven for yourself? Oh, well, what right do you have to go around trying to tell the people to stop believing their leaders if you're still following the leader? Does that make sense, Matrix?
Yeah. Well, I think there's different people, different states of life and existence that people are having to deal with. I think some people have jobs to do, families, mortgages to pay, families to look after, and they perhaps don't have the time to do what we do. I mean, I'm out of the system. I have plenty of time to research this stuff and do experiments and so on. So, and I love doing it. It's my passion, this whole truth thing, and flat earth has really taken over my life, and it's so amazing. I'm so grateful for that. It's helped me in so many ways, and allowed me to be really creative. And express those thoughts and ideas in a show, for instance. So it's something that is different for everyone, and it really is about self-empowerment, and self-realization, more than getting the word out to other people, in my opinion. But we hope to make this change in this society, to change the system, and that hope is to get to that tipping point where the masses become aware of it and things change and they start seeing through the lies more and more people, and more people then get the courage to leave the system, to stop paying their taxes and follow what they want to do with their lives rather than be a slave to the system. So I think it's a gradual process, and really it's been this year it's all been happening, and I've seen, for me personally, it's taken me on such an amazing journey. From when we first started talking about it on the Sunday sessions, when I came on your show, we had a good chat and all that, and then then we did a few of those, and then got into the Ball Earth Skeptic show, which was amazing show, fantastic guests, really fascinating subjects dealt with, different perspectives, different takes on things. And for me then to meet Mark Knight, and then we're doing the Flat Earth Rebel Outpost, which for me is just has been a magical process, totally creative process. Both of us, bouncing ideas with each other and having fun with it all. We've discovered that we've been lied to about the Earth being a globe. We know it's flat, me and Mark, and so we're, it's freed us to do something really creative and fun, and who knows where it's going. But that's
all terrific, Matrix, but that kind of is feeding into my original point. There are some people who are learning about this and they're saying, this is terrific stuff. This is going to become a priority. I'm going to look into things for myself. I'm going to start producing my own content, uploading it, taking back any constructive criticism that comes, really developing myself as a person as a result of this newfound knowledge. That's terrific. I wish more people would do that. But what I'm suggesting to you is that it's easy for you and me and for others to say, right, there's 1,000 people watching this video, 2,000 watching that, 30,000 have watched this, and then believing or imagining in our minds that all of those thousands of people have had the same profound change that we have had, when really that doesn't match with reality. I'll throw to you there, David. Can you see where I'm coming from? Do you understand the point I'm trying to make here?
I do, but I think that people that wake up to the flat Earth are having some level of profound awakening. You know, there are people that are just going to zone out. They're too fluoridated, vaccinated, and you know, they just don't get it. But I feel this movement, using it in a different sense, that the energy of this is so big that they cannot stop it. I see it expanding here. You know, I see people waking up every day to this. I even threw it out. You know, I had one of the guys that works for me on my construction team, and we're driving in the car, and I just said, "What if I told you the Earth was flat?" Straight out, and it turned into a whole conversation, and I guarantee within a week or two he's going to know. I've never seen people wake up to stuff this quickly, and
all right, then. So he wakes up to it, and then tomorrow he goes back to work, and then on the Tuesday that his bill arrives, he pays his bill, and then when his favorite TV show comes on, he gets his Coca-Cola and his Doritos, and he sits down and he continues living his life just as he was. What difference does it make?
I think it does make a difference. You know, what they do is every time people's consciousness starts awakening, starts rising, that they throw another false flag in there and they scare the crap out of everybody. Waking up to flat Earth will wake you up to the other false flags, and you'll stop going into the level of fear, and you'll start getting pissed off at the real reason all of these things and these lies are happening. You'll start seeing the greater picture that we are on we're basically in a prison with controllers keeping us there, stealing technology. They just had in Texas they call it the secret space program, and it's trying to expose all of the secret spaceships they're building. But what it really is the secret propulsion conference, where they have technologies that can transverse the great voids, and who knows what they can do. Maybe they can slip into other dimensions. Who the hell knows? But we're being robbed. People aren't going to take it. Unless the only way that people are going to stay asleep is if they stay in a low level of fear, and they don't rise their energy, their vibration. I believe that we're going through a transformation. I believe that December 21st, 2012, the apocalypse means the lifting of the veil of secrecy, but the disinformation that was put out by the CIA or whoever was, it's the apocalypse, it's the end of the world, the Mayans. They put all this stuff so everybody was in a state of fear and didn't raise their vibration on that day. It wasn't as big of a spiritual awakening, but it is happening. It's happening, and it's just taking longer because people are in this state. And I think Flat Earth is one of those that really shakes people awake.
In the live chat, Running QHS Rock says, JLB, I can tell that you're reading. I'll take that as a compliment. I think he's trying to suggest that I've got a script in front of me and I'm reading it out. And that seems to me to suggest he thinks I'm doing a very smooth job right now. So Running QHS, thank you for the backhanded compliment. And thanks to all of the people in the live chat. I'll try to read out more live comments as they come along. I can detect that in the live chat there's a few people who aren't very impressed with me throwing these kinds of questions to you two. And I would suggest that just kind of proves the point that I'm making here. It seems to me a lot of people are getting very emotionally invested in the flat Earth theory, and I wonder how much of that emotional investment is really worth the returns that they're going to get. Matrix and David, can you kind of understand where I'm coming from with this general meta question of why are these people so emotionally invested in it, and is it really healthy for them on a spiritual or psychological level?
Well, I think it's something that's so profound that, I mean, you can't help but be emotionally invested. I mean, to discover we've been lied to in such a profound way is affects us deeply. I mean, deeply emotionally, psychologically, everything. So yeah, I think but it's also something freeing and something to be passionate about. Um, to put you all into it. I mean, it's just such a wonderful topic, such a really, frees the mind from all of it all. So I think different people have different levels of on things, and it takes people different times to make different realization changes in their life or what have you. But everyone seems to be, well, I see lots of people are doing what they can just by spreading the word, and all this has an impact in ways we can't possibly imagine. So I think we'll have to see how it all turns out. But I mean, it's so encouraging to see. I think everyone I've seen in the Flat Earth movement as well has been really nice people. It's not filled with obnoxious, indoctrinated people repeating the program. It's mostly open-minded people, a lot of creative people, polite people. So it's just a case of time. I'm really encouraged.
So David gave us the figure of 2 years in the live chat. Matthew Eugene Broser, usually a terrific commenter, he gave a time period of 12 months. Let me put a question to you then. If in 12 months or in 2 years, even if things have grown in terms of the number of people interested in this stuff since now, even if it's grown, we're still nowhere near critical mass, will you simply keep pushing further and further the time that it will take for this tipping point? I mean, at what point do you think to yourself, maybe the low fruit has already been reached, and the truth is that the average person is so conditioned, so programmed, so brainwashed into believing complete and utter nonsense that there's no reaching them. They're going to die well before they ever question any of their worldviews.
Yeah, I think it's about individual empowerment mostly. And I'm
not answering my question there, dude. If it's not 12 months, 2 years, if people are going to put time periods on this, fine, that's fine by me, that's great. Do you then, after that time period, reassess your conclusion that this is going to change everything? Or do you stick to your conclusion and just keep pushing out your time dates?
Okay, well, I'm not putting any time limit on this. I think we're up against the system, and yeah, I think it's partly irrelevant whether it becomes mainstream or not. It's more of a personal truth-seeking thing for me. I live in hope that enough people wake up and there is this critical mass, but I'm not counting on that. I think it's something that I hope for.
Well, David, you've put the figure of 2 years. What happens if we get to 2 years and, say for argument's sake, you're doing well, you've got a cool radio show and a really cute co-host and things are going well for you and there's more people who are watching than were watching 2 years prior, but still it's a fringe topic. The mainstream media goes nowhere near it for the most part. The scientism puppet heads, the clowns like Neil deGrasse Tyson and others, they're still actually respected for some reason by the average person on the street. Do you then reassess your conclusion that this is going to change everything, or do you stick to your conclusion?
I don't think I'll change that conclusion. When it happens, it will change everything. Am I putting a time limit on it? No. Am I telling you what I think is going to happen? I think it's going to be less than 2 years. I really don't see it going very much longer. I mean, people are fed up. I was at a party the other day with a bunch of regular people that I grew up with, families that my kids grew up with, and they're all sleeping. None of them have any idea about anything that's going on in the world. And I'm standing at this party. It's on Halloween night, and they're talking about the baseball game. They're talking about the kids. There's nothing going on. And then one of them turns to me all of a sudden and goes, "I think I'm going to get my gun permit." I'm like, "What's going on?" I go, "What? Why so?" And he's like, "Because it's getting really weird out there." And he started talking. This is a guy that's so asleep, but all of a sudden he's noticing that stuff is going on out there. And I relate it to, people are waking up and becoming aware of what's going on.
Yeah, but you're still not answering my question, David. If people like you are going to walk around and give people this hope, hey, the world's changing, emotionally invest into this movement because things are going to change within a year or 2 years, if you're going to do that, then isn't it incumbent on you to also say, but if it doesn't work out the way I thought it was going to turn out, then I will reassess my views.
John, you ever have a project that you thought was going to take a certain amount of time and it takes 3 times longer? Do you give up? Or do you finish the project?
It's a false dichotomy. I don't give up. I just don't go around telling people. If I can't know that I'll deliver in 2 years, I don't tell people I'm going to deliver in 2 years.
And if you listen back what I said, I didn't say it was going to happen. I said, I feel it's going to happen. That's my opinion, but I don't know. I mean, I'm basing it on my opinion, on what I see. It could take longer. I'm very, I like things to happen quickly, so maybe I'm biased and maybe I'm putting too short of a timeline on it. But,
well, speaking of things happening quickly, that's a nice little segue to our most recent addition to the panel. We've been joined, this is the first time I've had the pleasure of chatting live with Patricia Steer of Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes. Patricia, thanks for taking the time to join us.
Thank you for allowing me to be on with you guys.
Oh, it's our pleasure. And hasn't this very quickly become the Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes with Matrix and John LeBon as guests, eh? Didn't that happen quickly?
Well, John LeBon, I do want to have you on as a guest, most definitely. But I had the idea that you are sort of taking a break right now. But here you are talking about the flat Earth, so I guess your break's over.
Well, we're kind of having a bit of a meta discussion about the flat Earth so-called movement because I'm still not convinced it's actually a movement, and I won't be until people can tell me where they think we're moving to, and once they give me those predictions, what kind of metrics they're going to use to measure those predictions against. Because otherwise it very quickly looks to the objective viewer like a bit of a cult movement. And let me explain. I got into all of this through the so-called hoax-busting community on YouTube, and there was a group of people, some of them very charismatic and very positive, who kind of led a lot of people to believe that, hey, the mainstream media's days are numbered. All of these hoaxes they're pulling off, Sandy Hook, Boston bombings, they're so obvious. The numbers are growing, and give it a year, give it a couple of years, and everyone's going to know. And it was very easy to invest emotionally in this. And just lately, I've started to notice a similar pattern with this flat Earth renaissance on YouTube. And so I was chatting about this with Matrix on Skype. He said, let's have an impromptu chat. And I said, Matrix, people aren't going to like me being skeptical about the flat Earth movement. And he said, let's do it anyway. So that's what we're doing. And we've been joined by David, Dan, Patricia. So if you're just joining us late, I better I've learned from you, Patricia. You're very good at this, constantly saying what shows people are listening to. If you're just joining us late, this is Impromptu Chat number 4. I'm your host, John LeBon, live from Brisbane. We've got Matrix Decode live from Spain via London, David Weiss of Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole live from New York, and Patricia, who I think is also based in the United States. And it's very quickly become a big show, and we've got over 50 people viewing live, so thanks for all the live comments. I guess since you've just joined us late, Patricia, we'll let you get your views on all of this out. You've heard some of the conversation while you're waiting to join us. So broadly speaking, do you have any points you'd like to make in response to what's come so far?
Well, the whole Flat Earth thing for me started in March, and then I started doing the Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes thing in August. It took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do about it, and I knew I needed to do something. But the thing is that I do worry. I kind of am listening to what you're saying, although I've joined the conversation late. I do worry that we're doing all of this and nothing will happen. But when you think about it, there's so many people with new people coming on board every day. It just with the sheer numbers involved, something's got to break. Something's got to break. Something's got to happen. And one of two things being that the people in power are going to bring everything down around our ears and just close the society that we've got, or Flat Earth is going to go mainstream and we're going to bring society down. And I know that sounds crazy and large and huge, and who's going to lead and who's going to make it happen, but it just seems like those are the only two possible outcomes. I don't see it as just being, those crazy people on YouTube. I see it as just exploding because everyone's talking to everyone, and people are doing live on the street interviews and, Flat Earth drive-by type things and new channels popping up every day. I'm a new channel. It just seems like something's got to give.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Patricia. And as rhetoric, that sounds very easy to follow. Something has to give. The world has so many problems, and it's easy for people to attach Flat Earth to being the solution. What I'm questioning is, if flat Earth is the solution, then what metrics can we use to measure the success of that solution? Because in the meantime, it seems to me like a lot of people are going to emotionally invest in this. And if people are putting themselves out there, whether they want to be called leaders or they don't, once we, and I include myself in this with the Ball Earth Show, once we start putting ourselves out there, then whether we like that or not, some people are going to think of us as being leaders out of the problems. And what it seems like you guys, and even me to a degree, are saying is, look at all of these lies. Look at this Ball Earth model lie, which is so obviously a lie once you spend time looking at it. That's the problem. The solution is people like us talking about it and getting very excited about it. But is it really going to be a solution? And if we're going to give timelines, it just makes it easier once again for people to invest in it. And the last thing, a lot of people had their hearts broken by that hoax-busting community disaster. And I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, but I know that Matrix and David were both following that one very closely. A lot of people had their hearts broken when that whole thing fell in a heap, and I would hate to see the same thing happen again.
Well, I mean, the thing is that what do we need? What do we need? Do we need leaders? Do we need, like you were saying, a timeline? Do we need to say in 2 years X, Y, Z is going to happen? Do we need to kind of draw up steps that we need to take to achieve that goal? And who's going to be the one drawing up those steps? Are you sort of suggesting that that might be the way to go forward?
No, quite the opposite. What I'm saying is it makes more sense to me if we're truly on a quest for truth, we're doing our own research, producing our own content, taking on board constructive criticism, offering it to others when we see someone make a good video and what have you. Not to say, hey, this is part of a movement that's going to change the world, but simply to say, hey, this is just a path of personal quest for truth. And if I find anything that you find useful, that's terrific. But I'm not going to sit here and say that by us talking about it, eventually that's going to change the world, because once you start making those claims, and I think it's incumbent on you to provide proof of that. Whereas in the meantime, if we say, hey, if this does change the world for the better, that's terrific, that's great, but I'm hearing lots of people talking about this as though in a year or in 2 years, everything's going to be different, and that's a gigantic claim to make.
Let me jump in here. The people of the world react by what they're told on the mainstream media right now. Well, our media is growing rapidly. We are reaching, Patricia's new show, she's reaching lots of people. The show we did, my YouTube channel, they're growing exponentially. Now we're starting to get some big names in there, like, Mike Adams is looking into this. If he comes out, if a Howard Stern comes out, if anybody big comes out, other people are going to start talking about it. Whether they're talking about it positively or negatively, it's still going to be flat Earth, flat Earth, flat Earth. You're going to see it everywhere, and it's going to tip. The tip happens fast. You only need like 5% of the population, or maybe even less, and then it goes to 95%. It doesn't, scale up 1%, 2%, 3% the whole way. It tips.
All right, so that's the claim that you're making, but what's your evidence? Okay, then tell me another time when the government and the academic institutions were caught lying, and that it went from 5% of people knowing that to 95%. When has that ever happened?
It hasn't happened. This is the tipping point of the lie system that we live in. There's other things that have tipped, certain, products and styles and all, music and all sorts of stuff. When it reaches a certain level, the lie system is gonna break. People are waking up, and whether it's that the vibration of the plane that we live on is changing and that we're changing physically, or that people are just sick and tired and waking up, it's happening. You can see it, and it's happening. It's happening faster and faster every day.
There is a big ripple effect taking place right now, and this flat Earth subject is unlike any other, and it's affecting everybody in different little ways. Seeds are being planted, and it's not something that people can really ignore. Family members, friends, Facebook groups, this, that, and the other. The word is getting out, and the seed is being planted, and it naturally grows, and people who are curious start investigating it. And there are various big names in the truth community, if you like, the conspiracy world, who are either touching on it, agreeing with it, or going against it. And this is all, the controversy is all part of it. And it's spreading big. I mean, there's David Icke, he put out a recent video where he's addressing it, and he didn't come out either way on it. He kind of skirted around it with it's all controlled matrix kind of reality. Max Egan, made videos on it, and he's sort of like hasn't come out either way on it, but he's trying to avoid it. Alex Jones, someone called it Alex Jones the other day, and he brushed it off. And he's all like for pushing NASA and believes we went to the moon. And
Matrix, hang on. Alex Jones brushed it off the other day, but behind the scenes, his producers are trying to figure out how to have flat earthers on. They see it. His producers are trying to get it on while Alex is brushing it off. So we'll see what happens there.
Cool.
And even Joe Rogan has addressed it by kind of making fun of it.
Yeah,
so,
he made fun of me.
So there's that, and then there's just people on the streets. This girl Lula Ball wandering around on Halloween saying the Earth is flat, and I know that sounds like nothing, but it's just somebody on the streets. There's a flat talk guy who's doing these on the street interviews in the UK, asking people about flat Earth, and people are starting channels every single moment. Even while we've been talking now, probably somebody started a new channel on flat Earth. And yes, it's just talk. Yes, it's just channels. And yes, pretty much anybody can do it as long as they've got an internet connection. But people are doing this to a larger degree than they are about the other conspiracies, and things like 9/11, things I thought at that point were the most important thing on Earth. That never caused me to get involved. I'd talk about it among friends, but this actually caused me to sort of jump in the fray, and I think that I am not alone in this. It's bigger than anything ever. What we do next, that's the part that puzzles me. I would just suggest, I guess, although I'm not in a place to suggest things on this show, but to keep on keeping on, keep on pushing, more people involved. Just the critical mass might push things forward.
In the live chat, Honest Trolling, who's another terrific commenter, he says that whether this is bound to go mainstream or not, it shouldn't change the way that we pursue it, or worse to that effect. I'm paraphrasing because the live chat goes quickly. That's the part I completely agree with. For me, whether you tell me that you've got a crystal ball and in 10 years everybody knows the ball is a lie, or in 10 years there's less people who know that than know today, it doesn't stop me from doing the research that I'm doing, because I'm doing it for me. I'm not doing it under some kind of false pretense that this is going to change the world. I'm just genuinely interested in how many lies I've been told and how much truth is actually in the world, in the information that's available. I do that for my own benefit. And where I'm coming at this is how many people are getting emotionally invested in the movement, and how many people are here because they were searching for the truth and they discovered they were being lied to about the ball. Patricia, do you get where I'm coming from with this?
I do. I do now. I mean, more than I did originally. And I do have to say that I got into it because I was searching for the truth and then became emotionally invested. And I don't see that being emotionally invested is wrong. And I don't feel that I'm going to be heartbroken and distraught if we don't bring it to mainstream. I don't think really anybody should be. They might be, but I don't think they should be, because it's all about the try. It's all about the attempt toward doing it, more than it is about the ultimate result. The result will take care of itself if we're all in on it.
Yeah, I agree with Patricia. It's the journey more than the destination. It's about the experience. It's about the awakening, one's own thing. And Patricia, she's doing a great show, and she's just doing a show, and it's reaching a lot of people, interviewing all kinds of different guests, and a bit like what we did on the Ball Earth Skeptic show, and more and more people were getting involved, and we live in hope that we can make a difference. I mean, this is optimism. If we didn't have this hope or optimism, then we wouldn't bother trying any of it. We're hoping to change the system, and I hope one day that the truth gets out there and changes the world, literally. But we can't put a limit on it. We can't. No one's really putting a time limit on when or how we can do that. It's a truly, in my opinion, an organic thing, and is spreading out in different kind of ways, taking over different fields of people's lives.
Yeah, you say there's no time limit, and I probably shouldn't use the word time limit. That's not the best way to describe it. But putting dates on things, and David, I'll throw to you on this one because I will address this to you directly. When you say to people, I give it a year, I give it 2 years, I think there's so many people out there who are sick and tired of all of the lies of TV and government And so they're looking for someone, they're looking for an idea or a movement to latch onto. And sometimes it seems to me that perhaps, wittingly or unwittingly, people are allowing themselves to take advantage of that by saying things like, it's going to change, you can see the change, I see the change every day, I'm waking people up every day, it's going to take 2 years, it's going to change everything, the system's coming down. By offering all of these claims, it's very easy for people who are looking for something to latch onto to suddenly find themselves latched onto, in this case, the Flat Earth movement. David, is it incumbent on us as people who are putting ourselves out there, not intentionally as leaders, but seen by some people that way, to not allow ourselves to take advantage of the people who are out there looking for a solution to the many problems?
I don't think that the people that I'm waking up were even looking for a problem. I'm just showing them that there is a problem, and that they're not aware of what's going on. Most of the people that I'm waking up had no idea anything was wrong. I was just on a show today, and the people that were in the audience had no idea about any of this stuff. And now, tonight, I'm sure they're sitting at their computers pecking away, and they're becoming aware. I see it happening everywhere, everyone I talk to. So.
Yeah, you're not really addressing my question, though, David. I'm asking you, is it possible that there are people out there who are looking for solutions, and that we, by saying this is going to change everything, this is going to change the world, it's going to take a couple of years, whatever, that we're allowing ourselves to take advantage of them searching for a solution?
I don't think I'm taking advantage. I am an example of the solution. I used to work for the corporate, mafia, and now I have my own business. I make my own hours. I'm making money. I have figured out the laws on taxes. I am thrilled. I'm never bored for a second of any day. I sleep 2 or 3 hours a night because I'm too fascinated to take any more time than that. I'm full of energy. I feel good. I'm healthy. I know about stuff that the mainstream medical mafia will never tell us about. And I couldn't be happier. Maybe I can be happier, but I'm pretty damn happy right now. And I want that for everybody. And I don't think that you can have it living in a state of fear, taking your pharmaceuticals, eating your GMOs, and not knowing what's going on, and feeding your energy to the energy suckers that are running this plane. How's that?
In the live chat, Daniel Leather has made a couple of comments implying that I have a defeatist attitude or something like this. And this kind of, again, proves a point that I'm making. For me, simply questioning on a meta level the so-called Flat Earth movement, he sees that as defeatist, whereas I would suggest that in the last couple of weeks, I've probably done more, at least so far as people can tell by the content that's uploaded to their YouTube channels, I've probably done more to look into the Flat Earth theory, the Ball Earth Math series that I've put up, than most people who claim to be flat earthers. I mean, if you took the average flat earther who watches these videos and sat them down and said, okay, then you're using the 8" per mile squared formula, can you please explain to me how you got that formula? They couldn't do it. But they're out there heavily investing in this idea of the flat earth theory and using that curvature formula as one of their key pieces of evidence. Well, I've actually sat down, and I can now, if you put me in front of a calculator and a pen, I can show you how to get that formula for myself. That's how interested I am in this. I've never been less defeatist in my life. I'm taking on all comers. I feel amazing. But the fact that I would sit here and question this whole thing on a meta level, people like Daniel Leather see as being defeatist, because for them, this is all about positivity and we're going to change the world, and who would ever question we're going to change the world? And he's kind of proving my point, isn't he, Patricia?
Well, there's no other idea that I've ever come across that would give people this much hope. And people are looking for hope. But I understand what you're saying, that you're able to do something, with the curvature, like I can't do that. I can't explain how 8 inches per square mile is correct. I could look it up, study it, and then remember it, and then, express it. But I haven't. I just assumed that that's what it is. But I don't think that makes myself or any other people who are just knowing it's 8 inches per mile squared not valid flat earthers. But I do think it's great to know that stuff. But it's not a religion, but it does give you a feeling of a spiritual connection to other people. And I think that is something that can help push us forward. And I think it's the greatest thing that's ever happened in our lifetime. And it'd be a shame just to say, oh, well, some people might get disappointed if this doesn't, go all the way, so we should just maybe pull back. And I know that's not what you're saying, but it would be a shame if we did that or let that happen.
I'm so glad you bring up the topic of religion, because this is one thing that I wanted to bring up and get the opinions of Matrix and then David and now you as well, Patricia. I've got a theory, if you like, and give me your feedback. It seems to me as though a lot of people haven't quite worked out that the ball earth lies, the dino fraud, human evolution, this is all part of a religion, a faith-based system of belief that people have been given from a young age. Right, even before they went to school, they were watching television. They've been raised in a religion. You guys probably were too. I certainly was. I read a book by Richard Dawkins when I was about 20 years old. I read it of my own volition. That's how much I believed in all of that nonsense, okay? I was reading, without realizing it, a religious textbook and believing it, okay? We were all raised in a religion, and it seems to me as though we're living in a society right now where there is a dominant religion. It's not Christianity, it's not Hinduism, it's scientism, whether most people realize it or not. They're religious, and it seems to me as though you'll never take a massive group of people and get them to stop believing in one religion unless you convert them to another. And so unless people are offering a new religion, how could you ever hope to undo the big religion which we're all facing right now? We're all heretics. The four of us here right now, and most of the people who listen to this show, we are heretical. We've said, this religion, this faith, you have faith. You actually believe that your clergy can weigh the earth with heavy balls in a shed. You really believe that your clergy put men on the moon with Game Boy computers? My God, we're dealing with a religion, you see. Now, how can you ever hope to get those people to stop believing in one religion unless you offer them a new one? Patricia, what say you?
Well, I mean, are we offering them the religion of flat earth? Is that what you're kind of saying? And it's just another belief system, although it's true, but it's a belief system that in some way some of us are parroting because we don't have the exact measurements and such down. I mean, maybe so, but maybe that is the thing that's being offered. We're offering people that sense of hope and that sense of belonging and community that nothing else ever has. And we're not praying to any sort of God, and it's not involving any sort of money. It's actually bringing the system down. So I see it as good. I see it as nothing but good.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with whether it's good or bad. I'm asking you, how could, let's suppose then that we are dealing with a religious group of people. We all went through people think that Sunday school is a religious school. No, I'm saying the school Monday to Friday is the religious school. You're being trained to believe that you're a highly evolved ape who came from, going back far enough, a fish who going back far enough came from a single cell, and that you live atop a spinning ball in this gigantic universe that is so big you'll never understand it. And guess what? Where you're sitting today, 67 million years ago, there were giant lizard birds. I mean, this isn't just a religion. This is the most whacked out religion I've ever heard of in my life, and most people are adherents to it, whether or not they realize it. They don't go to Sunday school, they don't go to church mass, but they sit down and they watch the TV news every night at 6 p.m. and guess what's there? The ball and all of the other lies, you see. So if we are dealing with a religion, and I believe that we are, how are you guys, how are we, how's anybody ever going to change, to convert all these people if we've got nothing to convert them to? I'll go to David Weiss at Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. Do you get what I'm saying? What's your response?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, and that's where a lot of other people that are involved in the awakening movement, even though Mike Adams has let Patricia and I go because he hasn't wrapped his head around the ball or across the plane, however you want to say it, he is out there talking about when the collapse comes, whether it's due to whatever, maybe he doesn't even realize that the awakening of the flat earth could cause the collapse or cause the collapse to be created. But he's out there saying, he wants to be prepared to have new sustainable ways of non-chemical free gardening and to teach people how to work together and barter and, a whole new society. He's planning a way for people to react after the system crashes and build up a new religion, you can call it, or just a natural way of being. All of these laws that we have are just statutes. There's only a couple laws. Don't get in anyone's face, don't murder anybody, and don't break contracts. Don't lie to people. Those are the only real laws, and anything else is a bunch of crap. So that's the new religion, and there are people out there that are already starting to live it, but you can't live it in the fake money system we have, where they rob us with taxes, where they control us with corporations, and they poison us, from every angle. The new religion is going to be the religion of real, free human beings.
And you're going to be one of the leaders of this new religion, David.
That is not my goal, but if I have to be, I'll do it. I'm always a damn cruise director. Um, I would like to just have it happen naturally, have enough people see it and realize this is the way to be, and I'll not be a leader. I'll be equal with every single other person on the plane.
If you don't mind me saying this, it does sound very utopian, doesn't it?
Well, utopia, that's just like conspiracy theory. You know what? There is a utopia. The utopia is don't break those three natural laws and forget about every other law. Don't get in other people's personal space. Mind your own business. Don't lie, and everything is utopia. But we were taught about I forget what year it was. It was the Utopia Project, and everybody ended up dying or killing each other or whatever it was. I don't believe that story at all. I think dinosaurs are more real than that.
All right, well, let me try and word this question a little bit differently for Matrix. And once you guys have all had your opinion, we can move on to the next topic. But Matrix, what if our problem isn't simply that all of these people have been raised to have faith in complete and utter nonsense? What if their problem is that they've been raised to believe in authority in the first place? In fact, the very idea that you could send your children to somebody else to teach them about the world, if you take a step back, it's actually kind of ridiculous. Why would you ever do that? So the problem isn't just what they're being taught. The problem is that most people now, it's ingrained in their minds that there is an authority to be trusted in the first place. And what if it's not a matter of evidence, trying to sit down with someone and say, hey, look, okay, I can show you a building that shouldn't be visible at that distance. I can show you the mass. It's not the evidence that's the problem, it's the worldview. And once they've been trained into a worldview of trust authority, your chances of ever undoing that are slim to nil. Matrix, what say you?
Yeah, well, that is the problem, isn't it? The blind belief in authority. I mean, even Einstein said, blind belief in authority is the greatest enemy of truth, and that really holds true. One of the it's a very powerful statement, and is the problem we're really up against, is the indoctrination since childhood to believe in teachers, to obey teachers, to obey parents, to obey the police, to obey the legal system, and so on and so on. I mean, the thing about flat Earth, it gets us to question everything, to rethink it all, and it really exposes how people and the extent of what people have been mind controlled with these belief systems, these religious belief systems, whether it's Christianity or Islam or scientism, but there's the way these let's call them religions have been co-opted, and they've been taken over, and people are being misled in different ways. However, there is some truth in a lot of these things. There's truth in some science, there's truth in some of Christianity and Islam and so on. I think it's this flat Earth really breaks that whole programming and exposes it all, and hopefully gets people to rethink it all. Truth is really the main thing, that is the belief system, if you like, the ideology, if you like. That is to be. This is what it's all about. This is what we're doing. It's and as for leaders, we don't need leaders. I'm sure some people will look to people for leadership. That's a kind of a natural human thing. But what the flat Earth really does is exposes all these leaders as frauds in a way that we don't need leaders, and it really leads us to anarchy, if you like, and anarchism, a way of living freely without leaders, without authority. And I think that's where it's kind of hopefully heading, and freeing people's mind from all this, these programmed belief systems.
Yeah, we're all on board with the hope and the optimism. I love, like, when you say you hope that people will become their own authorities. I'm completely with you. I already said that. What I'm asking you is, if people have plans to change the world, and you guys have all expressed plans and beliefs that you will change the world with Flat Earth, if that's the case, how are you going to do that?
We say that hopefully it can change the world. We're not saying it will change the world. We're not predicting that. We're not predicting the future. We've been optimistic about this truth, and whether it does change the world or it doesn't, we hope that it does. But on a personal level, it changes us.
It's a better system than we have right now. It's better hope. I don't see a better solution.
People now are doing different things than they have been doing. Like when I grew up, everyone sort of towed the line, and I went to Sunday school in America, kind of church, and regular public school, and my mom didn't work and my dad worked. Everything was just like a TV show. But now people who are trying to step out of the system are doing things like homeschooling their children more than I'd never even heard about homeschooling. I thought it was something weird people did. But now lots of people are doing it, and people are refusing to vaccinate their kids, and there's the free man movement, and people are rejecting health insurance and just going it on their own and using natural alternative methods. They're changing their diet and maybe even becoming vegan or vegetarian or eating more fruits and vegetables or going organic or foregoing GMOs or getting rid, like David did, of a regular job. And all of this fits into sort of the umbrella flat earth thing where, yes, it is all about hope, but it really is about truth.
I frequent a restaurant near me, and the owner is a young guy, and he's having kids, and he just had another kid, and through conversation I've enlightened him on a lot of things, and one of the things was vaccinations. And he actually just texted me today. He goes, I'm at the doctor's office for their new baby's checkup, and the doctor wanted to give him all these vaccinations, a flu vaccination, and he turned him down, and the doctor pressured him into the vaccinations, and he said no. And he's telling me all of this. And they're going vaccine-free on this, but the doctors make you feel like you're a bad parent. But that's another step in solving the current situation we're in. Get out of the vaccine, increase our intelligence by not letting them dumb us down with poison like that.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit tangential. I do want to thank you guys for entertaining these concepts that I'm throwing at you. I understand that when someone like me comes along and says, well, you're very optimistic, but is the optimism well placed? It can be a bit confronting, and to the live chat who've bared with us, I appreciate that. I hope that in time people can see that I know better than most just how ridiculous the ball earth model is because of how much time I've spent studying it in my own time. And I guess sometimes I can get a little bit frustrated that I see people spending literally hours a day listening to others talk about how the earth is flat rather than just spending 30 or 40 minutes reading a physics textbook from their local high school and thinking for themselves, does this make sense? Because if you take the time to do that, you'll see the official model doesn't make sense. You'll see the official story doesn't make sense. And I would argue that if you were trying to convince other people that the earth was flat, the best way to do it wouldn't be to say, well, I've heard this, so I'm going to parrot this, or I know this guy on the show and he's very convincing and you should listen to him. You'd have more chance of convincing people if you said, well, actually, let me show you this little paragraph I found in the textbook from my local high school. Did you know they're claiming that they can weigh the earth from a shed in someone's backyard? Like that to me seems like a more convincing way to do it in the first place, to prove to people that you've done your own research rather than just parrot what other people are saying. And I do get a bit frustrated, one of my many flaws, when I hear people parroting stuff they haven't actually investigated for themselves. Patricia, can you get where I'm coming from?
Yes, I can, because I am one of those people who's been accused of not doing the investigation myself. I have relied upon the investigation of other trusted people to do that for me, I guess. But that is sort of the way society works in general, and maybe that's why our society's bad. We rely upon the experts, and we rely upon government to tell us the way things are. And we probably all need to maybe brush up our skills, maybe not use JLV, but others brush up our skills on knowing the exact mathematics, etc., that's involved in the whole plane that we live on. But there will never be a world where every single person is completely aware of the world on which they're living. And we are going to always, if we do change the world, still have experts in gardening, as was brought up by David, or experts in preparing food or shelter. So we will always turn to experts and parrot some of their information to be able to handle the world in which we live. I don't see anything particularly bad about it. I see a new world, hopefully, where everyone uses their own strengths as opposed to being a part of the system, sitting in a cubicle, pushing paper, just relying upon what they themselves are able to contribute. That's kind of what I'm doing here.
So John, you've made the comment many times that, people need to go out and do their own experiments. Well, Patricia doesn't. But she's really good at hosting these shows, and she's attracting a lot of listeners. That's what everybody does their role. That one girl that Stinky Cash introduced that's running around on Halloween going, did you know the earth is flat? That is planting seeds in the impressionable human mind that's easily programmed. So they're going to be on the internet one day, and they're going to see something about flat earth, and they're going to remember the girl going, did you know the earth was flat? And they're going to look, and it's going to snowball.
Yeah, if we were engaged in a process of proselytizing a new faith, then we would want everyone playing their role. I completely agree with you. That's buying into the idea that there's a movement. So let's take for granted then that this is successful, that enough people play their role, and eventually you somehow do reach this large percentage of people who understand have been lied to about the ball earth model and so many other things. I'll throw this one open to you guys. You tell me what comes next, what happens next. What do you see happening next? What would have to happen next? If you can convince enough people they've been lied to about the shape of the Earth, and you can convince them that this is an important thing, what happens from there, David? What say you?
I'll start with hanging politicians in the front of the White House lawn, and then we'll see what happens after that.
And are you being serious right now?
I think it's going to literally come to people are going to be calling for lynchings. I mean, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be a complete takedown of the current system, and we have to have a new system in place ready to go. That's a better system, and how that's going to play out, I don't know. There's so many unanswered questions there, but there are people working on that. There are, will it come together? Will something organize it? Maybe, but anything is better than what we have right now.
Including hanging politicians.
The politicians, they're all, compromised, blackmailed, whatever it is. I think they will all be just completely taken out of power. I'm fine with them just melding back into society, but there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to put up for that, and they're going to want revenge, which is a low vibration. But we have to get through all of that darkness, and we have to come up with a new system and elevate people to being true, free humans.
All right, then. You're very good with your hypotheticals, David. One of the many things I like about your style. Let me put one to you, and then I'll throw it over to Matrix. For some reason, without you knowing, everybody gets together. Mark Sargent, Patricia Steer, Matrix Dakota, even John LeBon gets a vote, and Matthew Eugene Rose and all of the lovely commenters in the live chat, and somehow you get elected leader of the Flat Earth movement, and you've got enough numbers to make a difference. What do you do? Do you march down to the White House or whatever institution of politics in your country, and do you hang people? Be serious here. Like, if we're going to talk about changing the world, which you guys do, then let's talk about how you change the world. Are you serious? Are you serious about exacting physical revenge on people who've been part of this system? Some of them completely unwittingly.
That is not my plan at all. My plan is to get people awake so basically they could just turn their back on the White House and ignore everything they do and start their own. We don't need government. We can govern ourselves. We can make contracts between people. Like, if you're doing business with John LeBon and he screws me over, well, guess what? You screwed me over, but no one's going to do business with you because you're not a good guy if that happens. And that's how it's self-regulating. It's like eBay. There's no laws on eBay, but if you're a bad person, nobody will buy or sell to you, and you're out of the system. It's all automatic.
And now I believe that if I lived in a community with you and Matrix and Patricia and probably most of the people in our live chat, I think we'd get along fine because most of us are decent people who have no interest in manipulating others or stealing from others. We're quite happy with what we have. That's us, though. Do you really believe the average person who's gone through the so-called education system and who consumes the kind of mainstream media that is put out for the masses, do you think the average kind of person would, A, want to be in that kind of essentially anarchist community, and B, if you did put them in one, do you really think they'd behave properly?
Well, it's called service to self and service to others. There's two types of people that are selfish and people that will take care of other people before they take care of themselves. And the service to self group is going to die out fast because they're going to kill each other, and whoever's left, the service to others, is going to kill them off too. And then you have a better group of people. And that's what's going to happen.
I'll throw this one over to you there, Matrix. There was a guy called Eric Blair. He's known as George Orwell, and he wrote a book entitled 1984 back in the late 1940s, just after what we now call World War II. And he basically made a point in that book about how there's three groups of people in society. There's the very elite who run the show. He called them the inner party. Then there's basically the people who run the mechanics of the system. They're the outer party, and I guess they're analogous to, in today's society, to your teachers and your bureaucrats and the many people who work for councils and state governments, the people who depend on the state for their income. And then you've got the outer group, the masses, maybe 80-85% of the people. They don't really care who's in charge. They just go about their lives. They're very simple people, and that's the way they've always been. That's the way they're probably always going to be. And Orwell makes the point in that book that the second group might every now and then overthrow the first group, and then the first group might again overthrow the second group in terms of who gets to run the show, but the third group remains who they are because even though they're humans, even though they have the ability to think for themselves, they're just not interested and they'll never do it. And where I'm going with this is, Matrix, is it possible that you and myself and Patricia and David and so many of our listeners, this has had such a positive effect on our lives, and we consider ourselves decent people who would do the right thing? It's easy for us to extrapolate to think that's the case for the masses, when maybe the masses are the way they are. What say you?
I'm not sure what your question is. I would say, George Orwell, I think, some of the things he laid out, there's some truth in what he's saying, and might be right about certain things, but I mean, the way things turn out is kind of unpredictable. I mean, there are some, you can predict certain things, but what's really going to happen if it all comes down, that's really hard to say. I mean, change is going to be difficult, but it's absolutely necessary. Changing the system that we have, it's just quite simply horrific what's being done to the world, the people of the world, the mind control, the indoctrination, the slavery, debt slavery, and so on. It's got to change. So whatever can make it change is going to be a good thing, although it's going to be difficult. Change is difficult. People are mostly kind, well-intentioned, and that. And I think if it does all come down, if society as we know it collapses, different things will occur in different areas, and sure, there will be some nasty people around who want to take control of things and that. But hopefully, enough people will stand up and see. And it's going to be a struggle. It's a struggle right now. There's no easy answer or easy way out of it all. But we can try.
There's another element within the book. The first that I brought up was the masses, who just are the way they are. They don't care who's in charge. The other element is that second group, the outer party, the bureaucrats, the teachers, the people who depend on the government for their income. Many doctors work in public medicine. So much of the public budget is spent on medicine now. So even the well-educated and well-to-do doctors, they're essentially part of the system. They depend on people having to give their money to the government for their own livelihoods. They might not be coming to your door with the IRS when you don't pay your taxes, but they depend on someone else doing that for them to get their livelihood and their income. Do you really believe that these people, that second group, the outer party, do you really think they're going to support any attempts for serious, genuine, radical change?
Who knows? Who knows? It depends on each individual. I mean, some people are so hopelessly indoctrinated to the system, there's no way they can escape it. There's that line from The Matrix. They will fight to defend it. And, I feel no pity for these people. They're just hopeless cases. Completely closed-minded. Inhumane. This is about humanity, helping humanity. And if people want to, put in the effort to make a change, to look after all the starving people, and get rid of all this nonsense debt and so on. I mean, they'll be relieved themselves. A lot of these people, this second tier that you talk of, the teachers and the professors and all that, and they'll have a big awakening. If this hits mainstream and goes big, they can't help but address the issues that we're all facing with this subject matter. And
are you kidding? They'd have even less reason to address the issues, because all of a sudden, rather than turning up to work, doing what they were trained to do, and then going home and having all of these slaves to buy the food they need, all of a sudden they're going to have to know how to grow their own food, aren't they? They've been able to get by on simply using the very limited skill set that they've been given by university for their entire income. If we achieve what you guys want, which is apparently the breakdown of society as we know it, all of a sudden that entire outer party, they need to learn how to grow food and probably how to defend their own house.
Yeah, well, we can't. I'm not kidding, but also we can't predict how these people are going to behave. Some people, sure, we can say that they're hopeless. They're going to be useless in this new world, if you like, if it happens. I mean, who knows? It's really hard to say.
Matrix, I don't even know how to grow my own food. Now, I'd be more than happy to see the system as we currently know it fall to pieces, I have no fear whatsoever. But and just like you guys, I'm very different to the average person. And what you guys are talking about is convincing the average person. Do you think you'll ever be able to convince the average person that a complete change in society is good for them? We'll go to you, Patricia, of Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes. You've been very quiet, and I appreciate your patience. You've heard what I've had to say and the kind of points I'm trying to get across. What do you say about all of this?
I kind of think we don't need to convince people once we bring it to critical mass. I think that the feeling that they'll get in their hearts will convince them. The feeling that we all found when we found Flat Earth. It's overwhelming. It's life-changing. The things we used to do don't seem as important. I hardly go to movies anymore. I don't really buy clothes anymore. I still have the things I had before, but my materialism has gone way low. I feel that I try to be a better person more actively than I did before, and that all happened because of Flat Earth, and I don't even understand why. And I think everybody's had that feeling, and that might be the thing that helps push us forward with those people who might be the ones who might have more greed and less sets in their life. They might also be overwhelmed and overcome by this great feeling of the Flat Earth, I don't know what it's called, but togetherness, love feeling that we get from it, and that might help.
Okay, then sorry about the dead air there. It's been a couple of months since I've done a live show, so forgive me if I've been a little bit rusty. We're coming towards the end of the show. I do have other things I need to get to later this afternoon. It's about 2 p.m. here, Brisbane time, Australia. Thank you so much to the panel for joining me. We're probably going to wrap it up in about 20 minutes. In the live chat, someone made up a comment, someone who I won't read out his name because I used to respect him, but lately he's been acting like a bit of a fool, but he can stay in the live chat for now if he behaves himself. He says that when the economy collapses, then it will be easy to convince people. And I've noticed this, especially in the alternative media. There's this notion that the economy will collapse. There'll be some cataclysmic event, there'll be some major change, and all of a sudden everything's going to be different. And I say to them, if you understand that money is completely artificial, it is printed out of thin air. In fact, most money isn't even printed. It's just ones and zeros on computers. If you understand there's a small group of people who control the levers of that money, and you know that those same people benefit from the system as it currently stands, why do you believe there'll be a collapse? And this might seem tangential, but David, you brought up earlier, you think one of two things will happen. Either there will be a collapse or the flat earth will take over and then there'll be a collapse. Either way, you're buying into this idea that there'll be a collapse. People are trying to suggest that I'm defeatist or negative or pessimistic for having this skepticism about the flat earth movement, just as I'm skeptical about everything. Is it possible that maybe those who buy into this economic collapse, that they're really the ones who are defeatists, they're the ones who are buying into the fear? David, what say you?
Well, when people wake up to the truth about money, you ask people what money is, they have no idea what it is. They can't explain it. And dollar bills are not money. You know, gold and silver is money. And people are waking up to this. So this whole artificial ones and zeros, printing of money, interest, that's all going to vanish. And because, you know, it's just a faith-based Ponzi scheme that is long ago toppled. They just haven't told us. You know, in a situation, every time in a society when the dollar is looking at the end of its term, the bankers go to war, and that's what they're trying to do. And I believe that they would have been at war already, but people are waking up too fast, and they stopped it. They stopped the attack on Syria. They stopped us from attacking Iran, I think it was. They're trying to get to war, and we're not letting them. So, you know, they're scrambling. The dollar's going to vanish. That's a good thing. There's just going to be some pain in the process.
And do you think you're going to be able to sell that pain to the people? Do you think they really want to hear that?
You know, no one's going to want it. Everybody wants nobody likes change. Everyone wants everything to stay the way it is, especially the people that are doing well and have all their material goods, and they, you know, and are living this ungodly materialistic life. And even if they're good people, they just don't want change, and change is going to come. They're going to get hit the worst. The people that don't have anything are going to do actually better than them because they're used to not having anything. You know, and when people are greedy because they see other people greedy around them, you know, people behave like the people around them. They also attract the same type of people. So if we have a you can call it a collapse or a transition of society. If you are in groups of service to others, it will grow bigger organically, just like gravity attracts things. But this really does, and pockets of people helping each other will grow, and pockets of people fighting for themselves will shrink.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I've got one more topic I wanted to get your opinions on, and I'll make this one more of an open panel. I'll ask a question, then I'll shut up. I'll let you three express your views on this. Is it possible that the flat Earth, and let's call it a movement for argument's sake, this flat Earth, this burgeoning community of people online who are talking about this topic, is it possible that it's almost time for it now to branch out into focusing, not just tangentially talking about, but focusing on some of the other major lies of this overall lie system? There are a couple of obvious examples. One of them is the dino fraud, as I call it. The other one is human evolution. But there are others as well, and I can touch on those in a moment. Is it possible that enough time has now been spent on proving that this amount of curvature isn't there, or that this Apollo landing could never have happened and these photos are CGI, or all of these, or the story behind gravity and determining big G by hanging heavy balls in your shed roof is utterly ridiculous? Is it possible that eventually we'll reach a point where enough of that has been proven as a community, even if individuals still should spend their own time proving these things to themselves, as a collective these have been proven, and it's time to move on to some of the other big lies, such as the dino fraud and human evolution and other things? I'll go to you first, Patricia, and then there'll be an open panel. What do you think about all of this? Is it time for people to branch out?
I don't think the time is here yet. I've not been in Flat Earth that long. I found out about it, like I said earlier, in March. And so for me, I mean, I'm looking at like maybe, for me, in March. Other people may have a different idea of when the time would be. And it's not an arbitrary date I'm setting. I'm just saying that I don't feel that everyone is ready yet. I'm still finding new people to bring on board every day who are messaging me on Facebook, asking for things about how does the sun work? How does this work? And of course, I can't answer all of these questions. I turn them over to experts, send them videos, and answer what I can. But people are still out there, brand new to the movement, coming in, and that's never really going to stop. But I think there is a place, and the reason I have the name Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes, to discuss those other issues. And not only discussing, like you're saying, John, dino fraud or something like that, also things that we can do on the Flat Earth. I'd like to get on eventually someone who could talk about sustainable gardening. I know that sounds rather boring, but like you said, what would happen? Or what will happen when the whole system blows up and we have to grow our own food? How do we do it? I have no idea how to do it. I can barely grow a plant in my house. It dies. And that's just one plant. But people can do it. And if each person was able to grow enough vegetables to feed their family, there can be bartering and swapping. But we have to learn how to do it with a very small amount of land, because a lot of people live in these cities. So something you can do on your patio or in a very small space. That's something that I want to have on my show that would be helpful and beneficial, looking toward the future of Flat Earth once we get it to critical mass, once we start doing whatever it is that we're going to do to bring down the system, and once the smoke has cleared from the rubble that we create, either literally or figuratively. We're going to have to feed ourselves. We're going to have to clothe ourselves. We're going to have to do these sorts of things. And being sustainable, living sustainably, that's a big key to it. So I do want to put aspects of that in my show. That's what I plan on doing, John.
Yeah, I mean, just to chime in there, I mean, this is, we discussed quite a few things today. I mean, and what the Flat Earth can do to change the system. I mean, to me, it's about freeing the mind, and we have this common enemy. It's the system that enslaves humanity, and Flat Earth is another way of getting people to question what they've been told, to question everything, and hopefully we can bring about the end of this system. Truth seekers, whether they believe in Flat Earth or not, we've all got this kind of common goal, and some people have different takes on what truth is and so on. As for the collapse, I'm not sure if there will be this collapse. I think there's a lot of fear porn pushed around this, to scare people into conforming to the system in a strange way. And whether it happens or not, and how the collapse will happen, whether it be overnight or whether it take years, whether it's a gradual process of breaking down what the powers that be have in store as countermeasures and strategies. Who knows? But we can only hope that things will turn out. And I think the goodness in people, and especially the truth community and the flat Earth community, these people are all generally just good people on the whole, and will have a positive impact on everyone else. I think Daniel Levin made a comment just now, a really good comment, and it's like, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. And I think it's smart to take that kind of approach, and not to be paranoid, not to live in fear, to still get on with your life and be creative, have fun at the same time. Don't live in paranoia or fear. And I also think there's lots more to discover with the flat Earth. There's lots more research to be done, and many more people are bringing different ideas and evidence and new things to the table. So it's really an exciting time, and I think it's great what's happening right now.
Well, I had intended for this part to be more of an open panel rather than sort of back and forth with me and you three. Let the three of you sort of put your minds together. David, did you have anything you wanted to add to this topic? What I'm asking is it eventually there'll be a time when people who've spent, whether it's months or years, investigating flat Earth, eventually it'll be time for them to move on to properly and thoroughly investigating some of the other lies, won't it? Or is this the final station on the train of truth?
As you know, I used to focus on the big three, 9/11, Sandy Hook, and Boston, thinking that you wake up to those and then you move on to other ones and you see the truth. And then all of a sudden, Flat Earth came around, and I'm like, is this the big one? There's probably more. As you're pointing out, the dino hoax, haven't gotten into it that far, but it sure looks like you're onto something, John. And looking forward to what you come out. I think you're working on a video, and I hope that comes out pretty soon. I think there's lots of things, but again, if you wake up to the flat Earth, you're going to wake up to a lot of other deceptions a lot faster. I think this is a hot potato.
Yeah, it's true. The other things are going to just unfold before your very eyes once you got flat Earth sort of under control in your mind. Flat Earth brings so many things to the fore. You won't want to be involved in having a cable TV subscription anymore. That won't interest you anymore. You're no longer going to be, I'm just saying this for myself, but you're no longer going to be wanting to eat junk food. You're no longer going to be wanting to pass that person on the street who's, looking for a handout. You're going to give him something. Just because there's a weird feeling of connectedness this comes from. And that sounds all airy-fairy and all of that, but there's something about flat Earth that brings that out. It's, that new golden age, it's the age of Aquarius or something. There's something happening. There's something beyond just people finding out on YouTube and then spreading the news and waking other people up. It's an organic movement, but there's almost something beyond that. That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
Patricia,
it's fantastic. Mm-hmm.
This is the first time I've actually heard you spell that out. How you've become a better person, so to speak, because of flat Earth, or simultaneously with this movement. And I've noticed that I've done a lot more things. I've increased my vegetarian eating. I still I will admit I still take some animal products, but I'm kinder to people. I let people cut in front of me in traffic. I give people rides that I see walking down the street, a stranger, and I'm like, oh, this person is probably walking to work, and I'll pick them up. I've just become a nicer, kinder person. Not that I wasn't before, but there's so many things in my life that have changed since I've discovered flat Earth. Is it a coincidence, or is it part of it? I think it's part of it.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I was a good person before, I thought, but I still was caught up in the world of materialism. I was still caught up in the world of, I don't know, just the stuff that normal people do. Not to the degree that, I wasn't reading People magazine and watching the Kardashians or anything like that. I always thought that was horrible, and I always did my own artistic, creative things. But now, I really value human connections. In fact, that's what this has brought to me. Right now, I'm talking to people that I used to just listen to and think someday I want to be on the show with John LeBon. And here I am today, and David Weiss and Matrix Decode, and here I am. And that doesn't make it like I've climbed to the top of some heap. That's not what I mean. I mean, these are people, you guys, who I respected just from hearing what you had to say, and thought that these are genuine people I can connect with. And that's flat earthers. So many great connections I've made online through doing my YouTube channel, through doing Facebook and Twitter. People that are just really wanting the same thing, and Flat Earth seems to deliver that right up. It's hope, yes, but it's change, and we're making the change, and it's not going to be easy. And maybe the way Matrix says it's going to go down without any sort of huge revolution might happen, or maybe everything's got to burn. I don't really know, but on the other side of whatever happens, it's got to be better than the system we've got now.
Well, can I say, and I will be positive on this one, I think there is a lot of scope for people to, once they realize some of the big lies that we talk about, to make personal changes. And just for one example, if you told me 12 months ago that I'd no longer eat meat products, no longer eat cows, and no longer eat chickens, I would have thought that's such a huge change. I can't imagine what would have happened in my life to have led to that change, and yet we sit here today. I no longer eat meat. I no longer eat cows or chickens, and that's one of many changes that I've made. Now, that hasn't been directly because of the flat earth theory and me studying the lies of the ball earth model. It hasn't been directly because of that. It's been part of an overall change of realizing, you know what, I was wrong about so many things. What else was I wrong about? And what's more, just because I've been wrong about something for so long doesn't mean I have to continue being wrong about it, because I think a lot of the time you can call it cognitive dissonance, you can call it whatever you want, but the reality is that every time you make a big change in your life, whether it's just your worldview in your own mind, or the way you behave, the foods that you eat, the people you associate with, the way that you conduct yourselves in public places, whatever the case is, by making a big change, you're admitting that you used to be doing the wrong thing, and people hate admitting when they've done the wrong thing. For many people, their own opinion of themselves, their ego, it's the most important thing is how they view themselves and how the world views them and all these kinds of things. They hate admitting when they were wrong, even though we're all wrong about something all the time. So for me, this has been a process of trying to reduce the things that I'm wrong about. And I got started on all of this when I realized that I believed that 20 children died at a school shooting, and I was completely lied to. And not only that, but the lies weren't even that good. I didn't have to spend much time looking at it to realize this was a blatant lie. And this is going to tie into my final question for you guys, and then we'll wrap it up. I got into all of this because I realized the school shootings were fake. And then I thought, well, if I could have been fooled about that, what else was I fooled about? And slowly but surely my minds became more and more open to the point where now I'm going to dinosaur exhibits and taking footage and taking notes so that I can make videos about proving that this is all a fraud. I've got my 10-year school reunion in a couple of days. I'm flying back to Melbourne for it. I'm going to be saying to people, if they ask me, what are you doing with your spare time? I'll say, well, I still like to go to the gym and I still like to do this, but lately I've got a YouTube channel and I talk about these things. I'm going to be telling people about all the things that you guys know about and more openly. I've got no qualms in doing so. That's the change that's come about because something originally got me to realize that I was wrong, and that was the school shootings. That was the so-called hoax-busting community on YouTube. Now, it only dawned on me much later that entire hoax-busting community was a limited hangout, whether by accident or design. These people only wanted to talk about the fake school shootings, the fake Sydney shooting, the fake shooting in France. That's what it was about, just fake shootings, which is only a very tiny amount of the total lie system. And I can see this flat earth so-called movement falling into the same trap, whether by accident or design, only focusing on one aspect of the lie, the shape of the earth, and then people get very involved in that and emotionally invested, and they think, this is the big lie that's going to change everything. This is going to be what's going to change the world. When really the only way the world will be changed is if people change how much confidence they have in everything they've previously been taught. And they're only going to prove they're doing that by investigating other things. And so I'll get to the question that I'm trying to sort of articulate right now. It is it possible that the Flat Earth movement, unless some of its leading lights, the beautiful Patricia Steer, the very well-spoken David Weiss, the very handsome man from Spain via London, Matrix Decode, and others, unless they start helping drive people to investigate these other things, we'll quickly find ourselves, by accident or by design, in a limited hangout talking only about the flat Earth. Patricia, we'll go straight to you.
Well, I do think that we do need to branch out, and I think that's why David and I have connected. He is so well versed in all of the, all of the false flags and conspiracies, and he's talking about them and talking about flat Earth. And I really do think that's a good thing to do. And further talking about things that we're going to have to jump over the hurdles of the future, like I was saying earlier, figuring out how we're going to grow our own food, or if you've got children or plan to someday, homeschool your children. What do you need to know to do that? If the system really does break down to the point where we don't have the ability to even use the internet, I mean, who knows, something like that could happen. How are we to fend for ourselves? Yeah, we know the Earth's flat, but how do you, keep your baby from crying because it's starving? These are all things we all need to figure out. But the other conspiracies pale in comparison, but yes, they are all connected because they're all part of the lie system that we've been fed since birth, our parents, our grandparents. I'm just happy that in my lifetime this has come to light. My mother and father are both dead and never got to know anything about any of this.
Well, pardon me. Okay, let me rephrase this one, because that was a very long-winded way of asking my question. If people allow themselves to get focused on flat Earth, okay, we all thought that when I learned about the school shootings, I thought, wow, this is a pretty huge lie. And then I learned about other fake events, and I thought, man, it can't get any deeper than this. Kept investigating, and each time I found a new topic, I thought, wow, it can't possibly get worse than this. I'm at the point now where the lies of the ball Earth, yeah, they're a big deal. They're a huge deal. They're related to most of the other big lies as well. But there are other things that to me are just as important now, if not more important, in terms of breaking down the lie system. It seems to me some people, they're getting caught up in this idea of the flat Earth. This is the big truth. This is the big thing. Our investigation stops here. And it seems to me this might be a very misguided way to see it, Patricia.
So what do you suggest? I mean, I know that you're taking the role of the moderator. What do you suggest that we do? I look to you as a sort of I know you're asking us, but I guess maybe I'll ask you. You're this sort of beacon of information, and I'm at a loss for words. I kind of want to know what you think that we should do.
Well, what I would like to see personally, I put it to you like this. Someone suggested to me when I've recently been uploading these videos questioning the official story about dinosaurs, okay? The official story is that between 66 and 200 million years ago, these giant lizards or birds, depending on which part of the story you want to believe, used to roam the Earth. They were gigantic, the Brachiosaurus, 10 meters tall or something like this, some ridiculous amount. And they used to be the kings of the world. And then 65, 66 million years ago, there was an event that wiped them all out. And the birds, the common magpie or crow that you see today, is a descendant of those creatures. Now, to me, the further I look into this story, the more ridiculous it is, and the more I see the connections with so many other lies, including some that are directly related to the ball Earth lie. So I've been uploading these videos, and someone suggested to me, in fact, a couple of people suggested, why not have a dinosaur skeptic roundtable? And I thought, you know what, that would be a lot of fun. I've done a few other shows, they were a lot of fun, I got a lot out of them, but I feel like they're in the past for me now. I'd like something fresh and new. This seemed like a great idea, so I thought, well, who are the great dinosaur skeptics on YouTube today? Because when we started the Ball Earth Skeptic Roundtable, there were too many people to invite. There were so many people doing their own investigations, putting out content. It was terrific. I tried to look for dinosaur skeptics to put together a rough idea of a program. One guest per week, how many weeks could we do? I couldn't find anyone. There was a guy called Nuke Hoax who lives, funnily enough, not too far from me here in Queensland. He calls himself Jungle Surfer. He's done a bit of material on it. There's one or two others who haven't done much on it, and that's it. And I thought to myself, the dino fraud is just as important to the lie system as the ball Earth fraud. It might not seem that way to someone who hasn't investigated, but the moment you do, you'll realize, wow, these things are both very important. How could it be the case that there are all of these flat earthers out there now and all of this flat earth material? There are too many shows to listen to. I try to listen to a few, but I just don't have time to listen to all of them. And yet, in terms of dinosaur skepticism, you can't find many people. Why is there such a lopsided balance in this? And that's just one topic, Patricia. There's a couple others as well. So where I'm going with this is I would personally love to see more people branching out and saying, you know what, I've spent enough of my own time proving the ball Earth model is a lie. I've got 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or however many good reasons I need to know the ball Earth model is a lie that I can share with anyone if they take the time to listen. Now it's time to move on to something else, the dino fraud being one of them. Does that make sense?
It does, but with the dino fraud, although it's really interesting, it's sort of, kind of it's been, I don't know, this is horrible. It's kind of been wrapped up. I mean, carbon dating doesn't work. Now what? Maybe making people aware is this next step, that the whole dinosaur thing isn't what we've been told. That's a good thing. But I guess it's almost the same as saying, okay, so the curvature thing doesn't work and the Earth is flat. Now what? I guess maybe I'm all about the now what and moving toward that.
All right, then. So you say that dino fraud is all wrapped up. I wish that were the case, and yet it seems to me there are plenty of people who call themselves flat earthers who still believe in dinosaurs, would you believe? They think that humans walked with dinosaurs. We don't have too much time to get into that right now, but I put to you that the dino fraud isn't anywhere near as wrapped up as we might like it to be. David, you've been patient. What say you?
You know what? I agree with both of you, coming from different angles on the dino fraud. The dinosaur thing doesn't really affect us today, but the ball Earth theory does affect us today. But exposing it is huge. Now, you say that you're afraid that people are just going to stick with the flat Earth theory and not branch out. I don't think that's the case at all. Look, you're branching out. You're going to dinos. I started out on 9/11, and I branched out to Sandy Hook and Boston bombing. Now I'm on the flat Earth, and you know what? I'm interested in dinosaurs. And guess what? The people that listen to me and the people that listen to Patricia, they're going to branch out too. You have to start somewhere with a base, with the trunk of the tree, and then the branches will branch out into all the other frauds. You have to wake them up with one, and the flat Earth reality is the one that's really going to energize people to wake up to that and to move on to other frauds and see it all. I think that is the one that has the biggest base to support the most branches.
Well, you say that the dino fraud doesn't affect us to this day. Can I respectfully disagree with you and explain why? If you ask the average person if they believe that they evolved from a fish or from an ape or whatever their silly story might be, most of them believe it, and you might think that's just because when they were in school they were told that they evolved. But there's more to it than that. When you're telling people lies, you have to spin a big web of lies. And so it's not just that humans evolved, everything else did too, including your favorite dinosaurs. And for people my age, that was people like Ducky and Sarah the Triceratops and Littlefoot from the land before time. And depending on what age group you are, there's a good chance that you had the dinosaurs to believe in as well. Those dinosaurs aren't just for the human evolution nonsense. They're also for the ball Earth model nonsense, because supposedly those dinosaurs were wiped out by something from space, which could, by the way, happen at any moment, and the only way that we would have any warning is thanks to NASA. So can you see how the dino fraud ties right into the ball Earth myth, as well as being an important myth unto itself?
Yes.
Yes, so do I. I do. In a word, David, yes. But I kind of see it as part and parcel of it, and I think that's how you get to flat Earth. It's one of those key puzzle pieces that fit in, kind of akin to satellites, kind of akin to the ISS. It's, no evolution, no dinosaurs, but maybe everyone isn't exactly on that same path. And I bet that many, like you said, John, aren't, and doing more on that would maybe lead more people to flat Earth and lead more people to truth. I'm already done with it all, so that's just me.
That's kind of where I'm going with this. Perhaps there are some people, they're so brainwashed into believing they live on a giant spinning ball that you can show them a photo and they will think they're seeing curvature when there's none. That's how strong the conditioning is. But maybe they weren't quite as well conditioned about the dino fraud, or maybe they weren't quite as well conditioned about certain aspects of World War II, or whatever the case may be. So it seems to me like if the Flat Earth movement wanted to wake as many people up as they could, they would spread themselves out across different aspects of the lie system rather than suggesting or even believing that just one lie was the end of the line and this is what everyone should focus on. Matrix Decode, live from Spain, what say you?
Yeah, well, the Flat Earth exposes all of the lies. It destroys what we've been taught through schooling and so on, the indoctrination, which includes Big Bang Theory, evolution, and so on. So, for me, I'm past the evolution thing. I think it's complete nonsense. So the dino hoax has less importance to me and less value. To me, flat Earth is something that is just so incredibly fascinating on so many different levels and reaches into so many different areas of one's life and existence. There's so much more there for me to explore. The dino hoax, yeah, it's another avenue, another angle to spread the word, to break down the lie system and so on. So it depends on people's interests, what subjects they're interested in, what are their investigation skills and willingness to do the research in certain areas. And you John, are fond of right now going into the dino hoax thing, and that's great. And it depends on what you feeling, what appeals to you. So it just really depends, one of the other things I wanted to mention was that you mentioned earlier about the hoax community and so on, and what happened there. You seem to be equating what the flat Earth movement might happen, something similar might happen to the flat Earth movement that happened to the hoax community. And I think that what happened there was that people were following people. There were these so-called leaders of that community, and I think this whole leader thing needs to be got rid of completely, and as part of the whole anarchist approach as well. We were discussing before the show, and we were going to talk about it today, but it took the show went slightly different. But we were talking about, I was talking to you about certain people in the flat Earth community who want to control the movement, and these leaders, or the leader, one of the leaders, calling various people shills. A lot of the big name flat Earthers shills, and spreading paranoia, and these are the typical tactics of shills, and this is what we experience in the hoax community, the truth community, if you like, and people making these ridiculous allegations against people, and just spreading fear and paranoia, and trying to control their movement. And I see one person in the flat Earth community doing that. We didn't really get to discuss that today. We talked about that before the show, but maybe we can do that next time. But getting back to it, flat Earth is a big umbrella subject, and there's so many different things to explore. So it really depends on the individual. But if one thing's going to bring down all of the lies, it's the flat Earth.
All right, then one more from me on that one, Matrix, because I think this is important. You do believe that the flat Earth is the final truth. Did you kind of believe that? And you also believe this is going to be the one that changes everything and wakes people up. Did you also kind of believe that with the fake school shootings, the Sandy Hooks and the Boston bombings, did you allow yourself to have this much optimism or a similar amount of optimism with the last big thing on the internet, the shooting hoax truth community?
No, it's completely different. This is way more profound, it's completely different. That was focused on the little nitty-gritty little points here and there, the little events that are happening. No, it's fascinating and it was interesting for a period of time. But this is just what, you almost can't compare the two, other than maybe how there was perhaps leadership and accusations and how that movement almost seemed to collapse, and how it was upsetting for a lot of people, and maybe we can learn from that. But I think it's something, flat Earth is way, way bigger than anything else.
Well, you said it well. Maybe we can learn from it. I hope that we do, and I hope that tonight your time, today my time, having this discussion, talking about these things is one small step in maybe trying to mitigate some of the big mistakes and some of the big problems with that particular movement. And bear in mind, they consider themselves a movement. In fact, in my naivety, I thought that was a movement too, which is possibly where some of my skepticism about the flat Earth so-called movement comes from. Is I've seen something similar before. I've seen people emotionally invest in it. I've listened to people talk about how it was going to change the world in a set period of time, and how all people had to do was keep talking about it and direct people to other channels. And there was this idea of, well, there's a few people saying everything that needs to be said, so I won't bother investigating. I'll trust that these guys are worth believing. I used to believe in TV and government. Now I believe in these YouTubers, and that's as far as my investigation has to go, or even believing that just watching videos on YouTube was investigation. I've seen so many similarities between the two so-called movements, and all I'm trying to do with this show right now and the questions that I'm asking is maybe elucidate that and see what other people think. But we do need to wrap the show up. I have to sadly go to work later this afternoon, so we need to wrap it up right now. But I want to give all three of you a chance to give us your final thoughts, and hopefully we can do this again at some point in the near future. We'll go with the last in, first out principle. So Patricia Steer of Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes, thank you so much for your company today. Any final thoughts? And take as much time as you need to let the listeners know where they can find your work and your final thoughts on what's been said so far.
Well, John, I want to thank you for allowing me to be on. It's really an honor. And Matrix and David Weiss, I appreciate you both for what you bring to the table, the round table, so to speak, in this case. And I just think all of us flat earthers who are attempting to do whatever it is we do best, be it doing experiments, doing talk shows, word on the street kind of stuff, man on the street interviews, hosting roundtables, doing Google Hangouts, making videos. Just keep doing it. That's the key. And the new people hopefully will start doing it too. And just more and more people. And it's the greatest thing, like I've said earlier, that's ever happened. And I think the most important thing, and I don't think it's anything like 9/11, which did change the way the world is, and it, as David says, hijacked our consciousness, and I think that's a great way to put it. But this is so ingrained and so deeply rooted, the flat Earth. This is way beyond 9/11, and we need to treat it, I think, with the respect that it deserves, and go toward it as if we are going to achieve a new golden age. If we do not achieve that, we will lose nothing. We lose nothing. And we gain a better society than we've got today. And my show is Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes. It is a channel on YouTube, and I do shows a couple of times a week, and they're available on my channel. Thanks, John.
Excellent stuff. Well, thank you again for joining us, Patricia, and your former co-host, and maybe again co-host in the future, David Weiss of Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, live from New York. Thank you for your time taking us and joining us this evening. Any final thoughts for the listeners?
I just concur with exactly what Patricia said, so I won't repeat it because she said it far better than I can. You can find me.
Your show with her, I think you're redundant. I could just listen to her. I don't understand why you're on that show.
That's sexist. That you can find. Check out my podcast if you want to hear some serious dysfunction and a crazy troll fighting with the truth seeker deep inside the rabbit hole. It's on iTunes and SoundCloud. It's linked on my website, deepinsidetherabbithole.com. If you're trying to introduce somebody to Flat Earth and they're interested and they say, where can I find some stuff? Don't say Google Flat Earth because they'll end up in the wrong place. Send them to my website or send them to Patricia's channel. I have links to everything on my website. Is the Earth a Ball on that page? And some of the best videos are on there. And it'll just lead you down all sorts of rabbit holes. I've been on. I was on Sirius Satellite Radio, which was kind of weird because I don't believe in satellites. The other day, that was a fun show, and I think I'm going to be on again in a couple of weeks. So I'll let everybody know when that's happening.
Excellent stuff. Well, I'll provide a link to your channel and to Patricia's as well underneath this video on YouTube, although I'm sure the vast majority of our listeners are familiar with your work. And, of course, Matrix Decode. From the Flat Earth Rebel Outpost, we were originally planning to spend some time talking about that show. We didn't get the chance today. We will next time, I promise. But for those listeners who aren't aware, do you want to just give a quick plug for the show that you and Wakey are doing together? And any final thoughts for tonight's show?
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, it's been a great show, really good chat, fascinating, and it's great having Dave and of course Patricia. Spoke really well and made lots of really great points. This whole flat Earth thing is it's such a wonderful process. I'm just loving it. I think it's something really special going on, and all the people involved, no matter what they contribute, it's just fascinating. I made lots of good friends from this, really open-minded people, really caring people. So I'm just really grateful for all of that. My channel is Matrix Decode. I'm doing a show with Wakey, and it's called the Flat Earth Rebel Outpost. We've done 3 episodes so far. It's a sort of a humorous, arty, creative thing for flat earthers generally, and people should go check that out. So thanks.
And I can
May
say
I
that
interrupt?
Oh, please do. That's all right.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that since Matrix was speaking, and he's going to be on my show along with Mark Knight on Friday, November 5th, I believe, at 10 a.m. talking about the Flat Earth Rebel Outpost. So that's Friday the 5th of November with Mark Knight and Matrix Decode on Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes. I had to throw that in there. Sorry.
No, I'm glad you did. Is it just me? Is it a bit weird? I am hosting a show with 3 people who are themselves, in their own way, hosts. It's a very weird dynamic for me, but I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much to all 3 of you for joining. Just from my personal perspective, I haven't done many live shows lately, so if I was a little bit rusty today, I hope you guys can forgive me. And I hope that the general sentiment that I was trying to share tonight has come across in the way it was intended. I understand that to some people, the idea of questioning where everything is going is defeatist or cynical. To me, it's the complete opposite. It's saying, okay then guys, we've established, we've been lied to about certain things. More and more people seem to be joining. Where is it that you go to next? What are you trying to achieve here? I think these are questions that need to be asked, and hopefully those of you who are here for the truth can see that I am as well, and that's what it's all about. There'll always be some naysayers who just want to take pot shots at any opportunity they get. They're generally pathetic, and it's not their fault they're that way. Something bad happened to them. Something bad happened to all of us, really. We were raised in a religion. Most of us didn't realize it. And once you do realize that, it's very easy to then try and latch onto another faith or another religion or a new clergy or new leaders. And I'd hate to see that happen because I've seen it happen before on YouTube, and it doesn't end prettily. What will end prettily is if people do their own research, which is what I'm trying to do, what I would love to see more people doing. And we were talking about the dino fraud today. That's one area that I'm researching. There's a number of others as well that I've barely even spoken about publicly. I'll give you a little hint of one of them that I'm looking into. We know that the rockets to space are fake, and we know that NASA was started, if not in reality, certainly to the masses, by a guy called Werner von Braun. And we know that the rockets that they claim to send to space are fake. And we know that he was in charge of the V2 rocket program of World War II under the Nazi administration. So if we look at the footage from the V2 rockets and they look very suspicious, then all of a sudden all of World War II has to come into question. Now some people will say, oh, I already know that the 6 million figure has been hugely exaggerated or what have you. And it's like, yeah, maybe it has, maybe that's another matter. But what if far more of World War II has been exaggerated than you've ever cared to think about? Doesn't that deserve an hour or 2 of your time? If you're going to spend 2 hours listening to people talk about flat Earth and tell you nothing you haven't already heard because you've done your own research, maybe it's time to start looking at World War II. Maybe it's time to borrow some books from the library about World War II and see if you can find discrepancies. Maybe you can offer more to the search for truth and the destruction of the lie system by doing your own research and branching out than by focusing on things that we've already established. And that's the point I'm trying to make. If you disagree, that's fine. Feel free to leave comments underneath this video on YouTube. That's about it for the show. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen. We got it in within 2 hours. Thank you so much, Patricia, David, and Matrix. Thanks to all the listeners live and on delay. And for myself, John LeBon, on the 4th of November 2015, it's been a real pleasure, and I hope to hear from you guys and speak to you all again soon. Cheers.